So, Sabrina Carpenter just dropped a song and video called Manchild. As a life coach who works closely with men, I was immediately intrigued. I thought, I've got to take a look at that. And I wasn't sure what to expect. I thought, am I going to need to defend the guys, or will I find that there's something else going on? So I did what I always do, and I recommend others do, is to get curious. In other words, to drop assumptions, expectations, and prejudices and get in touch with the facts. I read the lyrics, I watched the video a couple of times, in fact, and what I found is that it's not at all about hate, but rather a wake-up call to immature men and quite possibly to herself and other women too. So let's jump in and take a look. We'll break down some of those scenes, unpack the lyrics, and have a look at why I'm saying that this is actually a clever, ironic take on immature men and the women who are drawn to them.
Oh boy. You said your phone was broken, just forgot to charge it. Whole outfit you're wearing, God, I hope it's ironic. Did you just say you're finished? Didn't know we started. It's all just so familiar, baby. What do you call it? Stupid, or is it slow? Maybe it's useless, but there's a cuter word for it. I know. Manchild, why you always come running to me?
So the first thing I would comment on is how the setting and the styling and even the lyrics are deliberately constructed to tell you to view this through the lens of juxtaposition and irony. First up, we see these bright, rich colors juxtaposed against that sun-bleached desert kind of background. You also get the ironic placement of this very chic individual in a most unglamorous setting. Plus, there are those outlandish props, like a half car, and crazy setups like a truck on its nose or another one tilted at 45 degrees while some guy works on it from underneath and it's unsupported. Before I became a coach, I was a magazine editor, and some of the stylistic elements of the video remind me of the work of the photographer David LaChapelle, who back in the 1990s and early 2000s did the most groundbreaking work that played with juxtaposition and irony. For example, here's a fashion shoot that he did. Notice how the bright red Coke can contrasts with the muted tones of the landscape, similar to what we see in Sabrina's video. Also, the Coke can is hyper-real, even bigger than the car. And we know Americans like big cars. So, while he's showing consumerist fashion, he's also making an ironic statement about consumer culture. And here's another fashion shoot he did with a hurricane-damaged house in the background, similar to how we see Sabrina as this chic individual, as I said, in a most unchic setting. I also noticed that the word ironic appears in the fourth line of the song where she sings, "Whole outfit you're wearing, God, I hope it's ironic." So all of that is why I'm going with the view that this is not a man-hating video, but a plea and a wake-up call for men to grow up. This is also expressed in the song's lyrics. Never heard of self-care, half your brain just ain't there. And later on, why so sexy if so dumb? And how survive, the earth's so long. If I'm not there, it won't get done. I choose to blame your mom, man-child. Why you always come and run into me? And I know she sounds a lot better singing it than I do saying it, but there you have it. Now, if you're a man and you find yourself reacting to that message, I say, don't. Don't get all caught up in the idea of attacks on masculinity. Those are mostly speculative, and there's not much you can do about them except argue. Rather deal with yourself as an individual. That's what you have the power to control. And do that by taking on, as I've done, a mindset of curiosity. So not a mindset of defensiveness, but of curiosity. And ask yourself, in what way might she have a point? Look at your own life and how you show up, and ask, in what ways might this be true for me or true about me? For example, in one scene, a man tries clumsily to kiss her neck. You can see he's hopeless at it. Men, you need to know how to treat a woman in that way. Women want a man who knows what he's doing. And yes, you have the added complication these days of having to get a verbal yes, but then work that into the mix. Get good at it. And women, if you want men to get good at it, you have to let them practice and get it wrong sometimes without politicizing it. Just treat it as a situation, an individual, unique situation, with a guy who's doing his best. At another point, Sabrina is riding with a guy on a recliner chair. He looks like a gamer, which we know is a bit of a trope for incels and for young men who don't do self-care and don't socialize. She's also explicit about the lack of self-care in the lyrics. Once again, she may have a point. In what way might you be that guy, wishing you could find a way out but not knowing how? I remember seeing an example of that in the series Queer Eye. So we know that those guys are out there aplenty. There's also a scene with her in a supermarket trolley, doubling as a sidecar being driven by an older guy riding a motorcycle. Now that's a midlife crisis trope, and we know that those guys exist too. In what way might that be true about you? Either that you're there or that you're heading there. There's another version of this theme in a meme featuring Julia Roberts where she is quoted as saying that women want a partner, not a project. I've done a video on this before, and yes, women are often guilty of turning men into projects, whether those men want it or not. But as I've pointed out in that earlier video, how do you make your case for not being a project when you literally are one, when she's out there chopping wood because you can't get it done? Once again, men, you've got to be able to lift yourself above the level of being a project. And don't blame the 80-20 trend that guys talk about. That's just an excuse. Get yourself together. Look at my other videos and find out how, for starters. One of the things I say in those videos is that it's for women that men grow up and civilize themselves. It's to woo women, marry, and have a family that most men develop an element of culture and maturity. I'm a firm believer that women are men's teachers. They civilize us, sensitize us, and put us on a good path. Without women, who knows? We might be all Lord of the Flies, or tech bros with our heads in the clouds. A bunch of other stuff happens in the video that reinforces the theme of men being incompetent in providing a woman with what she needs. That also appears as an ironic line in the lyrics. I like all my men incompetent, she sings. Then there's this scene where Sabrina is in a phone booth. The guy she's with at that point is outside playing with a dog, not paying attention while she inserts something into the phone's mouthpiece, something that looks like a bugging device. If I'm reading it right, I would say that symbolically it could be taken to mean that he's oblivious to her attempts to understand him better. In another scene, she throws a book at a guy. You know what it means to throw the book at someone, right? It means to punish them. In this scene, it flies past his head and the hardcover pegs into a tree. I don't think you're supposed to know what the title of that book is. It appears for a split second. But if you pause the video, it appears to be titled Abstinence, a State of Mind. I don't think I need to interpret that one for you. So, when women put out a message like this, I say, it would be better to pay attention than to react. Take it on instead of treating it as a political agenda. After all, if you and a million other guys just got your acts together, the feminists would have very little to stand on. That, surely, would be more effective than trying to win an argument with them from your gaming chair. There's another reason why I say it's ironic, and that is that she's let the joke be on her too, and in a number of ways. The first is she's laughing at her own foolishness for being so optimistic each time, and then becoming quickly disillusioned, as we see happening in these scenes. Here you can see the optimism that she starts out with, and the disappointment once she gets inside the vehicle and spends a bit of time with the guy, presumably. Then she's in this red truck, but now she's looking out the window at three other guys. It's almost like she's wondering about them, whether they might be a better option. And, by the way, LaChapelle did the same with celebrities. He photographed them with an ironic tongue-in-cheek tone, getting the celebs to play out the characters that people imagined them to be. Instead of them being all pious and defensive, he got them to kind of step deliberately into their own myth, even ones they knew to be fake, and have a laugh at themselves, being in on the joke, in other words. For example, here's Lil' Kim naked, but with Louis Vuitton tattoos. Here's Tupac coming clean after having been released from jail. And here's David Bowie with a dummy of himself as though he's working to construct his next persona. An approach like that is not used often in today's world because it's not readily or easily understood. People today tend to take every utterance and artistic expression literally and interpret every statement to mean that you are supporting and perpetuating whatever you are representing. Another possible irony, and the second way that Sabrina lets the joke be on her, is to do with her doing dumb stuff, just as dumb as the guys in the video are doing. So first, she shows some guys doing dumb stuff. For example, there's that vehicle on its nose, indicating that something stupid was done by the driver. Or this guy working on his vehicle while the thing is tilted at 45 degrees and unsupported. So it's like she's surrounded by Darwin Award winners. But then we see her doing equally dumb stuff too, like being towed by a gas truck while on rollerblades, shooting with what looks like a paint gun at a pool ball, and smoking at a gas station while an equally dumb guy washes his face with gasoline. At one point she sings, "Why so sexy if so dumb?" while she's choosing a fish from a claw machine, a somewhat dumb activity that she's participating in. You could almost ask whether she's saying this about the guy or about herself, or even trying with these guys. I know that might be reading more into it than the artist intended, but sometimes we get those kinds of unintended meanings arising, ironically, out of an artwork. At the end of the video, it's dusk and she climbs out of one car and gets into yet another, this time one going in the opposite direction. It's an ambiguous ending in which you're not sure if she's just trying another option or doing a U-turn on her attempts to find a man who is not a man-child. As the car heads into the sunset, an eagle flies into view, holding a tortoise in its talons, presumably the tortoise that was in the opening scene when it had a seagull perched on its shell. In a video so rich with symbolism, there's clearly something implied by that. Perhaps she sees herself as being a tortoise ready to retreat into its shell instead of being perched on by a loud, obnoxious, untamable seagull, and hoping to be carried aloft by a glorious eagle, symbol of strength, courage, vision, and insight. Of course, that interpretation would imply a woman hoping for a man to rescue her, which is bad feminism, so we won't assume that. We'll look for a better interpretation. Perhaps she herself is the eagle. But just in case, men, let's conclude by saying, don't be the noisy, greedy seagull that perches on the tortoise. Be the proud, powerful eagle that carries it. So thank you, and if you found value from that, please remember to subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.